Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Melissa Beam, and I am going to talk today about a research study that my colleague Sam Borboom and I conducted with regard to in-depth interviews of 8 faculty at a regional comprehensive university regarding HyFlex teaching. So, just a really quick literature review. Beatty was one of the first to define HyFlex, and this is a mode of teaching wherein students, they can choose whether to attend optional course meetings or complete all assignments in an asynchronous mode. So there have been many benefits to students when faculty offer classes in the HyFlex modality, and there have also been many benefits for faculty when they are teaching in the HyFlex modality. Not surprisingly, there are many challenges that faculty face when they are teaching HyFlex, and so these are the main studies that helped inform our research in this project. So we conducted in-depth interviews, qualitative in-depth interviews, and we wanted to find out really what were some of the benefits and the challenges that faculty in 2025 were facing with regard to teaching HyFlex. This is part of a larger study that we began in 2022 when we conducted surveys and in-depth interviews at that time, and then we went back and asked a year later in 2023 if faculty had changed their minds or what their experiences were then. This also builds on a study that we conducted last year that was based on surveys, and we reported the results in this conference last summer based on surveys with faculty. So this is the in-depth interview portion to follow up with that. So this study was IRB approved, and we conducted 8 in-depth interviews with full-time faculty at a regional comprehensive university. We started out by inviting 128 faculty to participate in the study in May and June of 2025, and 10 folks replied wanting to participate, and in the end we were able to schedule and conduct those 8 in-depth interviews. So overall, the study was conducted mostly with in-person interviews, but we did have one interview that was conducted via WebEx. The duration of the interviews were between 12 minutes, and one of the interviews actually ran over an hour. So the interview questions that we asked were, first, we asked folks, how do you define HyFlex? Because we know different colleges and universities define HyFlex in different ways. So most of the people that we talked to for the interviews, they allowed students to either come to class face-to-face or to do the work online asynchronously. A couple of the faculty did allow students to dial in for the class meetings via WebEx so that they could participate or at the very least watch what was going on in the classroom from afar. And that's a little bit different than some of the official definitions of HyFlex, but we want to make sure that people understand that there is still a variability, at least in this study, of how people defined HyFlex. So the results that we found, these were some of the prevailing themes that we saw with regard to benefits. One of the main benefits was that faculty could ensure that students were able to keep up with the work, whether students maybe couldn't come to class because they were sick or their children were sick or they had a really big work thing that they had to do. So this allowed students to keep up. And one of the faculty members said, it is rewarding to make it possible to accommodate these students. It allows that flexibility. So obviously the HyFlex flexibility built into the very definition of the modality. Also, faculty reported that there was a nice increase in their presence for the online students, meaning that they could connect with them in ways that they could not before. So faculty, especially the ones who opened it up for students to dial in during the face-to-face class meetings, allowing folks to dial in from afar, really enjoyed that aspect. Someone said, a faculty member said, "I enjoyed getting to know the geographically distant students." Another benefit was, and this is more the administrative side, was more stable overall enrollment levels. So as we continue to see the enrollment decline in higher education courses in general, HyFlex is playing a part in making sure that some of those face-to-face courses that are becoming a little less in demand at different schools, that those courses are still able to run. One faculty member said, "Our classes need to fill, and I have anxiety if my class might not run and be canceled due to low enrollment. HyFlex helps with that." So that is the context of what that faculty member was talking about. There are also challenges that faculty were facing in 2025. One of the main things was unpredictable attendance. And so faculty members spoke at length about the fact that they were creating at least 2 different courses. So certainly designing the online course, and then also designing an in-person course to run concurrently so that there would be the in-person option and also the online option. So when faculty were designing their courses and prepping for the next day, they were saying that unpredictability and not knowing how many students were going to show up was really impacting their workload. And so one faculty member said it is at least twice the work of a regular class. Also, faculty reported that there was a frustration with students who lived on campus and who were available during the course times. And faculty knew this because the students were dialing in from their dorm rooms. And we've heard this before in other, or at least I've heard it before in other panels with regard to HyFlex courses. Students were available and could come to class just a few steps away, but they chose to dial in from their dorm rooms. Also, the challenge of student choice early in their higher education journey, so maybe not making the most of the opportunities that are presented before them, especially when it's a first year or second year type course offered in the HyFlex modality. There's a concern that students are not building good habits for in-person attendance. And then another concern that faculty were, or another challenge that faculty were facing, was the drop in participant engagement when students were dialing in from afar. And so the faculty member would be managing the face-to-face students and also trying to interact with the online students. And sometimes when the faculty member was trying to interact with the online students, they would call on them and there would be no one there. So, an inability to really engage with those online students was something that presented a challenge. Another challenge that faculty members talked about was the frustration with assessing online students. So faculty felt pretty confident being able to assess in-person students and proctor exams and things like that. But when it came to the online students, it was much more difficult to know if those students were doing the actual work or if it was someone else. And also this concern about cheating. So one faculty member was really, really upset about it and said that COVID taught them how to cheat on everything. But we have to focus on the top 30% online, not the bottom 30% online who try to cheat all the time. So definitely a real concern about the assessments going on with the online students. Another issue relating to that is creating equitable learning experiences for online students. So again, faculty generally were trained in in-person modes, and so figuring out how to make sure that the face-to-face portion is equitable, not the same, but equitable for the online students was becoming difficult for faculty. So one faculty member said, "There is no way to approximate the depth of the in-person classroom with an online one." Another one tried to explain it to their first-year students about what HyFlex was and how they could maximize it. And they said, "Good is you taking the class online only. Better is you coming to class sometimes and the rest of the time being online. Best is you coming to the class in person all the time. You will not get the education online that others get in person." So some really interesting thoughts there about online versus in-person teaching. So the same faculty member said, with regard to sharing ideas or thoughts with colleagues who are considering teaching HyFlex or continuing to teach HyFlex, is to get yourself in the right headspace. These are online classes with an in-person component. And so this study, of course, very exploratory, trying to figure out what were faculty experiencing with regard to HyFlex in 2025. There were only 8 participants. The faculty that we invited to participate were very busy. So again, I mentioned that we had 10 people who wanted to participate. 2 people just could not set aside the time so that we could interview them as well. And of course, this is not a generalizable study. And lastly, the fact that these interviews were conducted in 2025, fully a year ago, definitely this information is not up to date. It's a window in time because of how quickly education is shifting. So for future research, we'd really like to talk to faculty at other regional comprehensive universities in different areas of the country. We'd like to talk to faculty at small private colleges to see if they're having any similar experiences or what the differences might be. And then talk to faculty at large and small public colleges and universities too. So looking at the public-private, looking at the size of the university, the mission of the university or school. And additionally, relating to all of that is faculty teaching in residential programs versus online programs. Is there a difference there? So thinking about that, these are our references, and we thank you very much for your time.